Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, for anyone who's ever really pushed for a major goal, maybe in business or school, or even like creative work, you know that feeling, working hard, earning it. But today, we're diving into a concept that kind of pushes back against that idea of pure meritocracy. You know, the whole effort alone gets you there thing. And our source for this exploration is some excerpts from Rhapsody of Realities by Pastor Chris. It's a daily devotional, and, well, many find it offers some pretty insightful perspectives.
Yeah,
We're looking at what our source material calls the grace advantage. And it suggests, well, that real success might operate on a whole other level, something that goes beyond just hard work or, natural talent.
that's a pretty big claim, isn't it? Especially today when everyone's focused on optimizing everything, 1,000 hours rule, all. So our mission here is really to unpack this devotional text, not necessarily from a purely theological angle, but almost like a blueprint for how things operate. We need to look at what it claims grace is, how it supposedly functions day to day as this active coordinating force, and maybe the most interesting part, how it can apparently be, well, multiplied. And the whole thing seems anchored in this one specific verse. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you through the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord.
Yeah, that quote's crucial because it immediately says grace isn't static, right? It's something dynamic, something that can actually increase. So let's start there in segment one. This idea that the advantage isn't purely about merit. The text really insists there's a factor in genuine achievement that just transcends your natural abilities. Doesn't matter how smart you are or how many hours you put in.
Exactly. What the material seems to argue is that grace is this essential enabling power. It either adds to your natural effort or in some cases maybe even overrides it. It tries to explain that thing we sometimes see. Two people, same skill, same drive, same prep, totally different results. The person who somehow makes it against all odds or the one whose timing just seems perfect, the source basically points to that and says that's the grace advantage. It's the X factor that pushes success beyond just what you earned on your own.
That does create some tension, doesn't it? I mean, for listeners who've really dedicated themselves to discipline, to grinding it out, how do you square that intense personal effort with this idea that, well, maybe effort isn't the only thing that matters? Does it make ambition kind of pointless?
Well, not exactly. The source doesn't seem to dismiss effort. It just reframes it. Like, effort is definitely necessary, but maybe it's not sufficient for that top-tier success. Think of grace as maybe the engine's alignment. If effort is the fuel you pour in, sure. But if the engine's out of whack, all that fuel doesn't get you far. Grace is presented as that alignment. So realizing this doesn't necessarily lead to sitting back and doing nothing. It might lead to a different kind of ambition, one that understands there's a coordinating element that's sort of outside your direct control.
Okay. Let's unpack that coordinating element then.
Yeah.
If grace is this active external thing, this functional advantage, how exactly does the source say it works? In the real world, day to day, you mentioned it assigns a very direct role, an orchestrator.
Precisely. The source material gets surprisingly specific here. It describes grace as actively managing the practical stuff, the daily details of your life, almost like an unseen operations manager running things behind the scenes. The text actually lays out 4 specific functions for this orchestrating force.
Right. Lay those out for us. Especially, how do they connect to things like opportunity or getting the right resources?
Okay, so first there's arrangement. The idea is that grace arranges or maybe tailors life circumstances specifically in your favor, like external events just lining up when you need them. Second is coordination. This is about how things unfold for you, managing the sequence, the timing of events.
Okay.
Third, and this is where it gets really specific and frankly quite intriguing, is personnel management. Grace supposedly coordinates who comes into your life and who leaves, but also when they show up and for what specific purpose.
Hang on a second. If Grace handles personnel management, does that mean I can just ditch networking? I mean, that sounds, well, potentially passive, almost deterministic.
Ah, that's the rub, isn't it? That's the tricky part. The source seems to imply that networking based purely on your own merit and, self-interest, well, it can only get you so far. But grace, according to this view, ensures that the one person, that key connection you couldn't possibly have engineered yourself, the person with the resource, the idea, the opportunity you desperately need shows up right when you need them. Like maybe you're stuck on some complex technical issue for months, right? And then, completely out of the blue, you end up sitting next to the one person on a flight who happens to have the exact obscure solution. Your effort got you the ticket, maybe. But the source suggests Grace handled the seed assignment and steered the conversation.
Okay, that orchestration concept suddenly sounds incredibly potent if it operates at that level. What was the fourth function?
The fourth one is alignment. This is about how all the different pieces connect and fit together. Specifically, aligning the right people with the right resources and the right opportunities at the right time. So if arrangement sets the stage and personnel management brings in the actors, alignment makes sure they all work together smoothly, like a well-oiled machine.
Wow. So that intense orchestration, that sort of microscopic coordination of people, resources, timing, that's the core benefit of this grace advantage concept. And if you actually buy into that premise, it completely reframes how you see your life, doesn't it? It suggests things aren't just random chance, but are maybe being actively shaped by some external force working for your success.
Exactly. And that realization, the source argues, leads directly to something quite profound: genuine humility. The text suggests that when you truly grasp that maybe your biggest breakthroughs, that perfect introduction, the resource that arrived just in time, the unexpected opening weren't just you, that they involved this active external grace. It changes how you see your own effort. You realize, okay, maybe you run the race, but you don't entirely control the track conditions or the finish line placement.
And this idea, this tension between effort and external factors, it's not new, is it? The source brings in that classic observation from Ecclesiastes to back this up. Chapter 9, verse 11. The race isn't to the swift, nor is the battle to the strong.
Right.
Wealth is not to one who's brilliant, neither is favor to the learned, but time and chance happen to them all. That nails the idea, doesn't it? Skill, hard work, smarts. They might not be enough on their own. Context and circumstance matter hugely.
Precisely. And the material connects us directly to the apostles Paul, John, Peter. It argues they really understood this coordinating role of grace. It wasn't just, pretty religious language they were using. They were acknowledging what they saw as an operational necessity, a key factor for success. That's why their letters so often start by invoking grace, wishing it upon the recipients.
Yeah, you see it right there in the greetings. They were almost trying to intentionally activate this external coordination for their audience. Like in 2 Corinthians, grace be to you, simple, direct. Or John, in his second letter, he expands it. Grace be with you, mercy and peace from God the Father. And Peter, as we said at the start, he wishes for grace and peace to be multiplied. They seem to believe this wasn't just nice sentiment. It was like invoking a formula for increasing someone's operational advantage in life.
Yeah, that's the implication.
Okay, so this is where we pivot to the really practical side. If this grace is such a powerful orchestrator and we've established the source claims it can be multiplied, well, how? How do you supposedly get more of it, increase it? What are the actual action steps for you, the listener?
Right. The material points to two foundational things you need to do. First, you have to be conscious of the grace of Yerd. Basically, recognize it as this active external force, not just random luck or coincidence. And second, you need to learn to function by grace, which sounds like deliberately shifting how you operate, moving away from relying only on yourself, and instead trying to work in partnership with this coordinating force.
Okay, consciousness and learning to function by it. But the actual multiplication part, how you genuinely increase the scope and power of this grace, seems tightly linked to knowledge. We keep coming back to that first quote, don't we? Grace multiplies through the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord. That's presented as the main lever. But there's a bit of a gap, maybe. How does increasing your internal spiritual knowledge translate into tangible external results? The actual arrangement of people, circumstances, opportunities out there in the world.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The source seems to position this knowledge as maybe like an antenna. If grace is the coordinating signal being broadcast, knowledge is what builds your capacity to receive and actually use that signal effectively. So the more comprehensive and deeply understood your knowledge is, the wider the bandwidth for grace becomes. Meaning, the more complex circumstances, the more diverse people, the greater resources this force can supposedly coordinate for you. It's kind of like the difference between having spotty reception and a high-speed fiber connection.
Interesting analogy. So the practical steps it gives for boosting this connection, for increasing the dimensions of grace, they focus entirely on cultivating that knowledge, that high-speed link.
That's right. The material highlights two specific actions to achieve that deeper knowledge. First, meditating on the Word.
Okay.
And second, and this is stressed as crucial, putting the Word to work in your life. Application.
Ah, okay. So not just thinking about it, but doing something with it.
Exactly. Meditation stops the knowledge from just being head knowledge, academic stuff. It turns information into, maybe insight or understanding. But even insight isn't enough, according to the text. The multiplication supposedly kicks in only when that knowledge is actively applied, when you consciously change your behavior, your decisions, your reactions based on what you've understood from the source material. It's that combination knowledge plus consistent, deliberate application that allegedly sustains and increases this grace advantage. It turns the theoretical alignment into, practical results.
Okay, so if we try to boil this whole deep dive down, the grace advantage, as presented our source, isn't some passive blessing. It's framed as an intentional external coordination system, one that actively arranges circumstances, people, and resources for your benefit, often going beyond what your own skills or efforts could achieve. And this system, this advantage, is accessed, maintained, and even amplified through specific conscious actions, really digging into the knowledge from the source material and then consistently actively applying that knowledge in how you live day to day.
And connecting that to the bigger picture. The source suggests that really getting this concept forces a fundamental shift in perspective. Away from pure self-reliance, the idea that you alone are responsible for every single outcome towards genuine humility. A humility that recognizes an external coordinating force might be playing a significant role. It's presented as an operational shift, really, attributing major successes more to coordination than just coincidence or pure grit.
That is definitely a fascinating perspective to consider as you move forward. Which leads to a final thought for you to chew on. Since the source material specifically suggests that grace determines the purpose for which people show up in your life, what might actually change in your daily interactions with colleagues, clients, even strangers, if you started viewing every single person and every opportunity that crosses your path potentially being specifically coordinated by a powerful force that's actively working in your favor? Something to think about as you map out your next steps.
For more information on how you can grow spiritually using Rhapsody of Realities, please visit our website, www.rhapsodyofrealities.org, or you can also visit rin.rhapsodyofrealities.org/salvation. Thank you.